Today we'll study female reproductive system, its basic embryology and the important questions. So let's start. So we should know that the fetus up till 6 weeks is phenotypically undifferentiated, that whether it's a male or a female fetus. But 7th week, 7वें हफ्ते में जो फिजिकल और फिनोटिपिकल चेंजेस होती हैं वो आने लग जाती हैं, स्टार्ट हो जाती हैं. एंड बाय द 12th वीक सेक्स कैन बी डिटरमिन्ड वेदर इट्स अ मेल और फीमेल. So it's an important MCQ that at which time or which week the sex of the baby can be determined. So it's 12th week that we can determine the male or female characteristics of the baby, and by the 20th week this differentiation is complete. So 7th वीक पे स्टार्ट हो जाती हैं फिनोटिपिकल चेंजेस. 12th वीक पे इट कैन बी रिकॉग्नाइज्ड whether it's a male or female, and by the 20th week this differentiation is complete. Now let's come to the factors which are causing these phenotypical changes, which are deciding whether the baby will be a male or female. ये तो हमें पता है कि अगर XX क्रोमोसोम होंगे तो that will be a female, and if there are XY chromosome then the baby will be male. But how these chromosomes are acting? Basically there is SRY gene which is mainly responsible for this, and this SRY gene is present on the Y chromosome. This SRY gene encodes a protein which is known as TDF, testis determining factor, and as we know, testosterone is produced by the Leydig cell, whereas Mullerian inhibiting factor is produced by the Sertoli cell. Well, it's another MCQ that which cells produce testosterone. It comes in the exam. So Leydig cell, LT. I have remembered it by left. In left, it starts with the L and ends with the T. So LT, its Leydig cells produce testosterone, whereas Sertoli cells produced Mullerian inhibiting factor. This also should be remembered because it comes in the exam. So let's come back to the determining factors for the phenotypical changes in the baby. These factors, these three factors, testosterone, Mullerian inhibiting factor, and testis determining factor, if these three are present in the baby, in the fetus, then it will be a male baby. And if these three factors are not present or absent, then the baby will be female. So let's study the development of gonads. The most important MCQ which comes in the exam time and again is from which structure gonads develop. So gonads develop from the intermediate mesoderm. This is the most repeated question. So remember, whether male or female gonads, they are both developed from the intermediate mesoderm. Now what happens? Let's come to the diagram and see what happens. First of all, we will only study in this slide about the female reproductive development, not the kidney development, not the male development, only the female development. So what happens? First of all, the urogenital ridge forms here. That's the urogenital ridge, and this urogenital ridge further forms a gonadal ridge. From this gonadal ridge, primary sex cords are formed, and these primary sex cords in the female form a structure which is known as rete ovarii. This is a temporary structure and it degenerates. Okay, so primary sex cords form no definitive structure in the female, whereas primary sex cord form a definitive structure in the male. After covering both male and female reproductive embryological development, we will compare them, that what were the structure which were forming a specific substance in the male and which did not form anything in the female, and vice versa. So urogenital ridge or gonadal ridge form the primary sex cord, which form the temporary structure which is rete ovarii and which degenerates. Now what happens? The secondary sex cords are formed from the same structure, urogenital ridge, and just consider the secondary sex cords as the pipes, and these pipes get filled up with the primordial germ cells. Okay, when these pipes are filled up completely, these pipes burst, and when these burst, they release the primordial follicles. Now let's come to the text. Primary sex cord develop from the gonadal ridge, and these develop into the rete ovarii, which later degenerates. Now what happens? Then the secondary sex cord develop, and these incorporate the primordial germ cells. Then these secondary sex cord breaks apart and gives primordial follicles. Now what are the primordial follicles? As I told you in the previous lectures, primordial follicle is a structure which is containing oocyte in the center and is surrounded by the granulosa cells, single layer like this. So this is the oocyte and these are the granulosa cells. So these secondary sex cords, when break, they release this primordial follicle. Now let's come to the descent of the ovaries. Ovary originally lie in the abdomen, and then in the later period of the fetal development they move downwards. Now what is gubernaculum? Gubernaculum plays a role to form the ovarian and round ligament of the uterus. Basically gubernaculum is a fibrous structure. Here you can see it. This is the gubernaculum. It is connecting the ovaries to the uterus, and then the uterine wall to the labia majora. Now it is forming ovarian ligament here when it is connecting the ovary and the uterus, and it is forming the round ligament here when it is connecting the uterus, side wall of the uterus with the labia majora. Let's see what paramesonephric ducts do and how they develop the female structure. So paramesonephric duct are divided, these are the paramesonephric duct, and these are divided into the cranial and the caudal part. The caudal part unites and form the uterovaginal primordium, whereas the cranial part does not unite. Okay, so the cranial part forms these uterine tubes, whereas the caudal part unites and form the uterovaginal primordium. This uterovaginal primordium transforms into the uterus, the cervix, and the upper 1/3 of the vagina. Let's come to the text. So the cranial portion gives rise to the uterine tubes. The caudal portion fused in the midline to form the uterovaginal primordium, which is giving rise to the uterus, the cervix, and upper 1/3 of the vagina. And the vestigial remnant of the paramesonephric duct found in the adult female are called the hydatid of Morgagni. These are the hydatid Morgagni. Okay, these are the vestigial remnants. They are of no use. Now what does the mesonephric duct do? The mesonephric duct basically does not form any structure in the female reproductive system. Okay, I'm not talking about the renal system, I'm just talking about the reproductive system. So in the reproductive system it only forms the vestigial remnants. Mesonephric duct has basically two parts. These are the mesonephric duct and the mesonephric tubules. Mesonephric tubules, these are the mesonephric tubules, and this is the mesonephric duct. So mesonephric tubules, as you can see, these are comb like. So these are also forming the comb like remnants, which are epiophoron and the paraophoron, whereas the tubule is forming appendix vesiculosa and duct of Gardner. Okay, so the mesonephric ducts have the vestigial remnant, appendix vesiculosa, and Gardner's duct, whereas the tubules, mesonephric tubules, are forming epiophoron and paraophoron. Now why it is the we are talking about this? Because in the later life they can form cysts, epiophoron cyst, paraophoron cyst, appendix vesiculosa cyst. Okay, these can form the cystic structure which can irritate and further lead to the symptoms which can cause complications. So this is how the female reproductive system develops. Let us summarize. So two structure, paramesonephric duct and mesonephric duct are important. Paramesonephric duct is divided into the cranial and caudal part. Cranial part forms the uterine tubes and has vestigial structure which are known as hydatid of Morgagni, whereas the caudal part unites to form the uterovaginal primordium. In the uterovaginal primordium transforms into the uterus, upper cervix and upper 1/3 of the vagina. Mesonephric duct has two parts, like comb-like mesonephric tubules, and the other part is the mesonephric duct. Tubules form the epiophoron or the paraophoron, and the duct form the appendix vesiculosa and the duct of Gartner. And these are important because they form the cysts. This is the gubernaculum, which is the fibrous band which is connecting the ovaries to the uterus and then uterus to the labium majus. How was ovary developed? Gonads were developed from the intermediate mesoderm, and ovaries were developed like as we studied. These were derived from the intermediate mesoderm and from the secondary sex cord, which changed into the primordial follicle. So let's compare the female outer structures with the male ones. So the female has this clitoris, whereas male has this corresponding phallus. Female has the labia minora, whereas male urogenital fold unite to form the ventral surface of the penis. Male has this labioscrotal swelling which is going to form the scrotum, whereas the female this swelling is going to form the labia majora. You just need to know these basic things. I am only discussing the most important topics which are going to come in the part 1 exam. If you talk about the embryology, it's massively extensive. We only have to cover things which are important for the part 1 exam. Now let's come to the clinical scenario. If the paramesonephric duct failed to develop or incompletely form, then unicornuate uterus. You see there are two cornua. One is being donated by one paramesonephric duct and other is being donated by the other paramesonephric duct. But if these ducts fail to unite or incompletely unite, then one donation is not made, so it is only one cornua, so unicornuate uterus is formed. What is uterus diadelphus? It is the double uterus because of complete lack of fusion between the two paramesonephric ducts. As a result, the two paramesonephric ducts will form their own chota sa uterus, and these will also have two different openings. So this is uterus diadelphus. So unicornuate due to the lack of the fusion or incomplete development. Basically what is happening, one paramesonephric duct is not completely developing, and it has led to the only single cornua of the uterus, whereas in uterus diadelphus both paramesonephric duct have developed but they have not united. There is complete lack of fusion. Now let's come to the bicornuate uterus. In the bicornuate uterus there is partial fusion. In the diadelphus there was complete lack of fusion, whereas in bicornuate uterus there is partial fusion is there. So there are two cornua and there is small septa in between. So keep in mind, you just need to know sorry, in the unicornuate uterus there is lack of development of the paramesonephric duct. In the uterus diadelphus there are two separate vagina and there is complete lack of fusion. In the bicornuate uterus there is some fusion, there is one vagina and there is a septa in between and there are two cornua. Now septate uterus, it's somewhat normal but there is a small septa. It is also due to the sum of malfusion. Let's come to the male reproductive system. As in females, the gonads develop from the intermediate mesoderm. In males, the gonad also develop from the intermediate mesoderm. Now what happened in the female? The primary sex cord developed from the gonadal ridge or the urogenital ridge, but these primary sex cords in the female developed into the rete ovarii and then degenerated. But in males, these primary sex cords are forming the seminiferous cords, seminiferous tubuli, seminiferous recti and rete testi. You need to remember this: cords, tubuli, recti and testi. So now what happens? These seminiferous cords consist of the primordial germ cells and sustentacular or Sertoli cells. Okay, as we know, Sertoli cells secrete the Mullerian inhibiting factor, and testosterone is secreted by the Leydig cells. So these seminiferous cords are consisting of the primordial germ cells and the Sertoli cells. Now just consider that these are the pipe-like seminiferous cords and they have primordial germ cells and the Sertoli cells, and in between this is another seminiferous cord containing cells, and in between these cords there is a mesoderm. Now this is a one cord, this is another seminiferous cord, and this is the mesoderm, and this mesoderm gives rise to the Leydig cells. So you see there these are the seminiferous cords which are containing, this is one seminiferous cord and this is another seminiferous cord, and this seminiferous cord is containing the Sertoli cells as well as primordial germ cells, and this one is also another seminiferous cord containing the Sertoli cells or the primordial germ cells, and in between these two cords there is mesoderm, and this mesoderm gives rise to the Leydig cells. These Leydig cells produce testosterone. Okay, so this is how the male reproductive system develops. You see the primary sex cords, how important these are in the male, whereas they were of no use in the female. They transformed into the rete ovarii and degenerated, whereas in female they are forming the seminiferous cord, tubules and recti as well as rete testi. The secondary sex cords were formed in the female and they were forming the reproductive structures like primordial follicle, whereas in male no secondary sex cords have formed. And similar, like ovaries, the testes are also developed in the abdomen and then they descend into the scrotum. And as the gubernaculum plays a role in the female, it also plays a role in the male descent of the testes. So along with gubernaculum, the peritoneum evaginates alongside the gubernaculum to form the processus vaginalis. What happens? Sorry. This is abdomen and these are the testes, scrotum. Here the testes are placed and this is the peritoneum. Now this is the gubernaculum. Testes are descending like this along the root of the gubernaculum. Now along with testes, this fold of peritoneum also comes down and is covering the front and lateral side of the testes, and this peritoneum fold is known as processus vaginalis. Most of the processus vaginalis is obliterated and remaining to form the tunica vaginalis. Now what happens? This is there is a connection between the peritoneum and this processus vaginalis. With as the life continues, this process breaks its connection with above peritoneum and it forms tunica vaginalis. If this connection remains, the water or the fluids from the peritoneum can come into this processus vaginalis and can result into the hydrocele. So this is an important clinical. Now, what are the role of the paramesonephric ducts or the Mullerian ducts in the development of male sexual organs? Now, under the action of Mullerian inhibiting factor, paramesonephric and the uterovaginal primordium regresses. Okay, so the paramesonephric ducts, the cranial portion, and their caudal uterovaginal primordium, which forms the female reproductive structure. Basically, this paramesonephric duct regresses under the action of the Mullerian inhibiting factor. So, the paramesonephric duct forms basically no definitive structure in the males, it only forms the structures in the female. So, it will only form the vestigial remnants, which are appendix testis. You just need to know the name of it. It does not come into the exam very oftenly. So just know that the paramesonephric duct forms only the structures in the female reproductive system, but it is inhibited by the Mullerian inhibiting factors present in the male, so it does not form any structure in the males. Now the mesonephric duct, which is the Wolffian duct, it forms the epididymis, the ductus deferens, the seminal vesicle, and the ejaculatory duct. This is important. Now the mesonephric duct or the Wolffian duct, you should know that this is the mesonephric duct, okay, and it forms all the important structures such as ductus deferens, epididymis, seminal vesicle, and the ejaculatory ducts. So let's repeat. The seminal, the mesonephric or the Wolffian duct form the epididymis, ductus deferens, seminal vesicle, and the ejaculatory duct. So epididymis, ductus deferens, seminal vesicle, and the ejaculatory duct are formed by the Wolffian duct or the mesonephric duct. Now the vestigial remnants of the mesonephric duct are called appendix epididymis, and the vestigial remnant of the mesonephric tubules are called as paradecimus. Not so important, not so important, not so important, but you should just have a idea that mesonephric duct also has the vestigial remnants, and mainly you should know that paramesonephric duct under the action of Mullerian inhibiting factor does not form any structure in the male, whereas the mesonephric duct forms, start from this whole structure: epididymis, ductus deferens, seminal vesicle, and the ejaculatory duct. Alright, now the mesoderm around the cloaca induces the ectoderm to form a swelling, which will result into the formation of the phallus, the labioscrotal swelling, and the urogenital fold. This phallus will form the glans, part of the body of the penis. These urogenital folds will form the ventral surface of the penis, and this labioscrotal swelling will form the scrotum. So this is the whole male and female reproductive system development. Let's compare what was happening, what was the comparison, and how different things formed one structure in the male whereas did not form any structure in the female. So the gonads of the female are the ovary, ovarian follicles, and the rete ovarii, whereas the male gonads are the testes, the seminiferous tubule, the tubula recti, rete testis, Leydig cells, and the Sertoli cells. So the paramesonephric duct in the females were forming, the cranial portion was forming the uterine tubes, and the caudal portion formed the uterus, cervix, and upper one third of the vagina, whereas the paramesonephric duct under the action of Mullerian inhibiting factor was inhibited and did not form anything in the male. Okay, the remnants in the female was the hydrated of Morgagni, whereas in the male was the appendix testis, and the mesonephric duct in the female degenerated and formed nothing, whereas in the male it formed the whole circle, which is the epididymis, the ductus deferens, the seminal vesicle, and the ejaculatory duct. Okay, now the mesonephric tubules form the epoophoron and the paraoophoron cysts in the female, whereas in the male it formed the efferent ductule and the paradidymis, not so important. The phallus in the female had the clitoris, whereas in the male it has the glans. In the females and the males both has the corpora cavernosa, whereas in the female it has the vestibular bulbs, and in the male it had the corpus spongiosum, not so important. You should just know that the phallus in the female forms the clitoris, and in the male it forms the glans. The urogenital folds in the female it formed the labia minora, whereas in the male it formed the ventral aspect of the penis. The labioscrotal swelling in the male it formed the scrotum, whereas in the female it formed the labia majora and mons pubis. The gubernaculum in the female formed two structures, ovarian ligament and the round ligament of the uterus, as I stated in the diagram how it went from the ovary to the lateral aspect of the uterus and from the uterus to the labium major, whereas in the male it only formed the gubernaculum testis, and the processus vaginalis, which was the extension of the peritoneum from the abdomen to the scrotum, and then it was closed. It basically cut off its connection with the peritoneum of the abdomen and formed the tunica vaginalis.